left, right.
Hey, what's up there? Thank you for tuning in. I think you'll like this episode. We talk a little bit about the history of Black Friday, which is pretty cool. I didn't know much about it. I didn't actually know what Black Friday meant. I thought it was a financial thing, but listen on, you'll learn a little bit. We also we digressed a little bit in vaccine mandate argument. My mind's still not made up, but I certainly had not had my argument points in this episode, but you'll hear and let me know what you think about the vaccine mandate. And we start off talking a little bit about our Halloween, our post-pandemic Halloween, and how we had much different Halloweens, New Jersey to South Carolina. But on that note, I'll let you listen to the episode, let you watch the episode. If you have not already, please subscribe, like, comment, interact any way you can, and I'll be appreciative. I'll see you guys on the other end. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Of course, let's go.
Cheers.
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 Welcome, everyone, to SipTalk, episode 146. My name is Justin DiGiulio, out of my basement in New Jersey, joined by James, the Bosnian Boswell, out of Charleston, South Carolina. James is a philosopher, an accountant, a professional referee, and a professional bartender. James, how's it hanging?
Things are solid right now. It's not October anymore, but it's still like October weather here, which is by far the best month in Charleston.
Yeah, no, it's hot the majority of the year, and I know from experience you get that nice October, November cool down, and I know December, January, winter months can be kind of cold, but it's nice down there right now.
There's a lot of variance in like December and January, but like October and November, it's typically like 70 to 80 degrees during the day and like 55 to like 65 at night.
Well, that's not.
It's just perfect.
I think our high today in New York was like 52. So you're winning. It's getting cold, and now that I live in the suburbs, I got some plants outside. I got to move in. There's a freeze warning tonight, so I got to move some plants inside. But so today I want to talk about. I will do a little Black Friday talk, a little global climate summit talk. But Halloween has just passed us. I'm new to the suburbs. I've been in the city for a long time. And I know very little about Halloween in the suburbs. I just missed it last year. I'm curious what your experience was like now that you basically have a house. You're no longer in a townhouse type situation. Did you have any trick-or-treaters?
Yes.
Were you prepared for trick-or-treaters?
Not directly. My roommate was.
Okay, that's good. What you hand out for candy?
I don't know, probably good stuff. Like,
oh, you were non-participatory.
well, so he got a whole bunch of candy, and while he was sitting out front.
Oh, he just sat out front.
Yeah.
Tactic I didn't think of.
Yeah, he sat out front, and so for maybe about 45 minutes or an hour, I joined him and just kind of bullshitted with him while we watched the small parade of people walk by.
And you live in like a neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
All right. But did you have any of his candy?
Oh yeah, I've eaten some of it.
What kind of candy? That's what I'm curious.
Like Snickers, Hershey's.
Oh, all right. Nice. That's not bad candy. Full size, baby size, bite size.
At the end of the night when he went to restock because we were running low, he bought full size stuff. So it was like anybody that comes now is winning the lottery.
One year I bought like I don't know, a ton of money worth of full size stuff because I couldn't find any bags when I was in the city, any bags in the local grocery stores. But look, I had a slightly different experience, although I feel like I would have felt really desperate sitting on the front steps, but on the porch. But so get this, we got 13 bags of candy, and made sure that we got like some good candy, not like just the kind of cheap stuff. We tried to get like some nice candies, some Hershey's, some Twix, peanut butter cups, and a bunch of other mixed stuff in there, M&Ms. 13 bags. You know how many trick-or-treaters we had? Now, bear in mind, we had the front of the house was decorated, lights were on.
I put some Halloween. I found a Halloween music playlist, playing a Halloween music playlist, and a little Bose speaker out front. You know how many trick or treaters we had?
I'm gonna
Oh,
guess zero.
by the way, we were dressed up.
I'm gonna guess zero.
Not a soul. Literally not a single person. And I live in a neighborhood. There's like a street with families and some kids, some old people. There's houses are somewhat close to each other, not super close to each other, but like you could walk house to house. It
Sounds like your neighborhood's a little less densely populated than mine.
Yeah, I think so. But I will I'll tell you, man, I was severely disappointed. From like 4 o'clock maybe onwards. I had music playing, super expecting to see some kids. Got dressed up in a costume.
What were you?
So you know the Squidworm TV show, Squid Games?
Yeah, I haven't watched
Yeah,
it.
you haven't watched it. Well, it's about the Korean people that basically get killed. But she was one of the participants, the lady participant. I was the main bad guy, which has a mask on. He's got a big black jacket on, and I was actually worried the costume wasn't going to come in time, and it came in time, but nobody showed up, so I was really really disappointed. And it was a somebody. John just asked, "Is this a truly? This is a truly a it's a truly." So yeah, so
Yeah, I
Halloween.
didn't dress up. I just sat on the front area and had like wine.
Well, my concern was that we weren't prepared, and then because there are like some kids in this neighborhood, but I also know there's like some teenagers. I see some of the signs out on people's lawns, like congratulations, graduates of whatever year it is, 2021. Whatever. So I know there's like some teenagers in the neighborhood. So I was afraid if we weren't ready, like the house would get egged, that kind of thing. So and I was it was really lame on my part. It was actually really, really sad.
How far back is your house from the street?
I mean, you can see it. There's not much tree coverage, so I don't know. Well, you'll have to come check it out. So, look, I know the climate summit is happening right now, the global climate summit. Although
I think it just finished.
yeah, it's my understanding that I think it finished today.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that Russia and China sat this out. They did not participate. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like they would be, especially China, would be one that you would really want to engage in this discussion.
Yeah, I know that when it like with the Paris Climate Accord, that China actually made some meaningful concessions. I don't know too much. I haven't followed any of the news about this most recent one, but whenever I hear about a global climate summit, I just think like we've tried nothing and we're out of ideas.
That's that's exactly what it sounds like. We have tried absolutely nothing, or we've committed to trying things, haven't enacted them, and we've given up on ideas. To answer John's question, this is the citrus squeeze. Truly, James,
Yeah.
for our readers, what are you drinking?
Oh, yeah, for those of you not familiar with my SipTalk drink, it is a cold can of Bush Ice.
At least it's cold today because it's not. It's not
No, that like
always cold.
when I was in the apartment, I didn't have that much storage space in the refrigerator, so I'm just like, screw it, I'll have to drink warm beer because I don't have room for beer in the refrigerator. We have 3 fridges here, so one of them is a dedicated beer fridge. It's small, but it works. We should say hi to Shiharaba and Sepitz from Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, definitely rooting for the Braves actually because I don't like the Houston Astros since they got caught cheating like a couple years ago. Now I just root against them out of principle.
So back to the climate talk. So I don't have too much to say on it, but I feel some frustration with hearing like they're setting goals for like 2050 now and 2060, which is so far in the future, and they actually sound like pretty shitty goals. Like carbon neutral to me is, or like paying offsets with taxes or whatever that might be. To me sounds kind of bullshit. Like you can throw a bunch of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but then you can just pay it back. It's kind of like the indulgences with the Catholic Church.
So it's
So
very similar.
You're allowed to do
that's
wrong as long as you donate money back to somewhere else.
It makes it so right now they don't have to pay anything for it, and it in economic terms, this is what's called an externality. So let's say I run a factory, and that factory is in a city or whatever, and that factory produces a bunch of smoke and other stuff, right? We're not even talking about climate change. We're just talking about like the smoke that the factory creates and its effect on the neighborhood, right? So that factory gets to produce these things and sell these things, and the costs associated with people breathing in that smoke and like what it does to the property values and everything else around there, the factory doesn't have to pay for. But it's a negative economic effect of the factory, but the factory isn't the one suffering the effects of it. And so the damage that smoke is causing is called an externality. And the carbon tax, the idea of having carbon credits, is that for the longest time, all of these businesses that are very carbon intensive have been able to get away with not having to pay for this externality of what they do contributes to global warming that everybody suffers for and everyone pays the consequences for. But the businesses are the ones causing it, but they're not the ones suffering the consequences as much as everybody else is. And so if you can make it more expensive for a business to run that's heavy on carbon, then either the business is going to have to spend more money to pay for that carbon, or more likely try and find ways of reducing their carbon impact so that they don't have to spend as much money on these carbon credits.
It's a disincentive.
Yep.
But it's still allowing them to do business the way that they, which is kind of what I'm getting at.
But if you take the money,
if they have it now, they're disincentivized from doing so. But to me, it screams it's in the same vein as when the church was selling indulgences. So if you were rich enough, you could basically buy back your sins, but you could continue to sin. So yeah, obviously,
I think that's a fair analogy.
Obviously, like that would be a disincentive to be sinning. But if you had enough money, like, you could get away with fucking your neighbor's wife because nobody knew about it, but you and her, but you felt bad about it. But then
you paid for it.
You paid God.
So
right?
the question then is the revenue that's generated from these carbon offset credits. If that money is used to fund things that reduce the carbon in the atmosphere, so like there's all sorts of technologies out there to sequester carbon, to basically take carbon from the atmosphere and put it into a solid form of some sort.
Yeah.
And now you've got less carbon in the atmosphere. The problem is that like there's not the technology is not very advanced yet. The technology that works well is really expensive, and it's not implemented very much, largely because it's not profitable. So if you can take this industry that's not profitable but is beneficial to the entire globe, well, if you subsidize that industry by taxing the people that are producing the carbon, then you could take the money and use it to reduce the impact. So you can say, yeah, you're buying indulgences, but at the same time, we're using money to pay for the harm that your indulgences caused. And we're, in a way,
so they're
offsetting them completely.
Yeah, but again, it just seems silly that you can still keep doing it. And that's...
Well, the other thing would be that if you do the pricing structure correctly, then you could have it in graduated amounts where like businesses that don't contribute too much don't pay a lot. And then as you produce more, your rate per ton of carbon produced goes up. So like, let's say your first carbon ton is a penny, and then at 100, it's 10 cents. And then at a million, it's $1. So like you exponentially pay more if you're really, really dirty.
Yeah, I get that.
And then there becomes a limit for all businesses, at which point it's unsustainable for them to operate the way they are because they can't afford to pay for the carbon that they're producing.
I don't think we're pushing it that hard though. I
Well, and
think you're
that's
basically, pricing the indulgences at different values versus the severity of the sin,
just the
right?
volume. It's your first indulgence costs you $1.
Volume, yeah.
Your first 5 indulgences are $1 each. Your next 20 are $5. Your next 50 are $100, and then your next 100 are $100 each. So like eventually, and if you do the pricing structure right, you get to the point where nobody's going to be able to afford their next indulgence, and so then indulgences, in theory, would stop, because then you're going to actually suffer consequences where like maybe your business gets shut down or someone goes to jail.
Yeah,
This is pie in the sky. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but like
no.
the question of like how do you price the carbon offset credits to get businesses to reduce their carbon input? Like how do you do the pricing? That's something that like an economist can just create a pricing model and figure it out. Like haven't done the research, but these are like really easy problems for economists to solve because it's just looking at numbers.
Yes, an economist can solve it, but then governments of large nations need to agree on them.
Right.
And
we've tried nothing and we're out of ideas.
And I was just going to ask you to repeat the line. And that's really what it feels like to me, is that we're just, I'm not a big fan of any kind of loud trumpeting extremist person. But I'll give it to Greta Thunberg, whatever her name is. I don't particularly like her just because, for the same reason I don't like Bill Maher. Is like they kind of, well, I think he's kind of has a bit more discord and discussion. But I think she's doing something great. I think it's nice to have somebody kind of standing up, as the Lorax, saying, "I speak for the trees," and I think that's great what she's doing. But I haven't really seen any other sides of her. To me, she's like a one-dimensional figure, and she represents one thing, and that's what I don't like about these kind of Trumpy type people.
Yeah,
but I think it's a great thing that
correct.
she's doing. I think that what she's doing. She has a great goal, and I think that's all great. Like I'm all for what she's doing. I just can't kind of relate to her or see her as like just kind of a thing in my mind, which is a weird way to describe that.
Yeah, my opinion is really similar. Is that it's one dimensional. There's no depth there. She's single issue and she's diehard about it. And sometimes I think she's needlessly alarmist. But at the same time, like
who else is doing it?
Right, she's serving a purpose that nobody else is, which is constantly drawing attention to a real issue that does need to be addressed.
Yeah, and she's actually there's an album by the 1975, and she kind of like she's in the intro to the album and just kind of talks through about like what's happening with the environment. But even remember back in the day with Al Gore and his An Inconvenient Truth, like that was very alarming for anybody who watched it, but kind of came and went, and it's behind us now. But unlike Greta, that was, as far as I know, like Al Gore's like opus, and that was it. He just kind of disappeared after the election. So
I'm sure he gives speaking tours and stuff like that,
but do you or I hear about him? Nope.
No.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at. So props to Greta, but also it would be nice to see her more than one dimensionally, because it's just, it makes it difficult to like relate to that. Just when somebody's constantly saying one thing, even if you agree with them, you just kind of tune them out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What else do we have going on here on our list of topics?
So I thought it was funny. Like, I don't know exactly when the date was. I feel like it was maybe like last Friday or something, that the NYPD, the city had a rule that all police officers in the NYPD had to be vaccinated by a certain date, and it might have been last Friday. And
it was last
all
Friday.
police officers got really upset because they didn't want to get vaccinated, and like they went on marches with like, "We won't comply," which I don't think I have to explain the irony there.
Yeah.
But the police union said that like as many as 10,000 officers would like leave the force or something like that, which to what I say is like good. Like if you've got people on the force that are that opposed to obeying the law, then maybe they shouldn't be police officers.
Well,
But at the end of the day, it was 34 officers that quit.
yeah, out of thousands and thousands of
There's
them.
40,000 officers on the NYPD.
Yeah, some of these guys are traffic officers.
But it doesn't matter. It's a,
No, I agree. And there, and of all of them, there was a very, very slight minority that ended up quitting. And I have a strange feeling about this vaccine mandate. I'm not for it, but also I think about like all the vaccines that you have to get to do almost anything in the world as it is. Like you want to travel to Africa, you got to get vaccines. You want to go to school as a kid, you have to get vaccines. You got to fucking give your pets vaccines in order to like have them as approved animals. Otherwise, it's like animal abuse if you don't get your pets vaccinated. So most people are getting their vaccinations and getting those and their loved ones and everybody around them vaccinated. And for the most part, those are mandates. It's just that this is just so political right now, and people are choosing
why
sides.
is it political though?
I blame the media, and I also blame Trump, and I think they kind of go hand in hand because they really played off of each other.
The media loves Trump because he says ridiculous things that catch attention, and Trump loves the media because the only thing he cares more about than himself is attention for himself.
Sure, but the media is also still talking about coronavirus on a regular, nonstop basis. If I turn the radio on right now, they're still talking about, like, within the next 30 seconds, the topic of coronavirus will come up, and it's just they're letting this thing perpetuate and
well, because it's still really bad. And
it was never that bad.
No, first of all, you lived in New York City. Like, New York City hospitals were overwhelmed for like 6 weeks straight. And that pattern followed in many other cities and in areas that have low vaccination rates right now. Like COVID patients
and most of these people were elderly.
It doesn't matter. The reason why it's important for everyone to get vaccinated is that even if vaccines don't do a great job of preventing infection, they do a fantastic job at preventing hospitalization, at preventing severe cases. And so if you've got people just through the normal course of life that have to go to the hospital for non-COVID things, and the hospital is full because of unvaccinated COVID patients, then all these non-vaccinated COVID patients are causing other people to not be able to get services that they should be able to get.
I will completely agree with you there, but I think that we have exaggerated the severity of it. And again, I'm not against the mandates. I actually realize that many other things in life you have to get vaccinated for. For example, if I was going to Africa, I would get the whatever vaccines it is that you need to get when you're going to Africa. That would make a lot of sense to me. But because of how politicized it was, and because it's not really a vaccine that many people need to get, especially 5-year-olds.
Well, it's not even approved for 5-year-olds yet, I don't think.
It was I don't know where, but my understanding it was approved today for 5 to 11-year-olds.
Oh, well, that's good.
I mean, but 5 to 11-year-olds aren't really getting it, so
Yeah, to some degree, but it's again if you have to look at vaccines and disease in terms of nodes, and so like if you have infectious person and an infectious person, like it can jump, and so like and it can only jump so far. So if you make it so that it's farther for it to jump by removing nodes around an infected person by being vaccinated, then even if a lot of kids probably got it and just never showed symptoms, but we're still infectious.
And
Like,
and able to transmit. I totally get it. I'm just saying that I have mixed feelings on the mandate, and I'm not against it. Right. And
why would you have it? Why would you be opposed to it? Like everything, like
Because
so,
it's
as you
because
said,
it's
so many other things in life we have to be vaccinated for,
Yes,
and
because
nobody complains, or
because
nobody sane complains.
for the most part, this is even people who already had the virus have to get vaccinated, and that to me doesn't make that much sense. But also
We should say hi to Maria.
people that are not susceptible to getting this virus also had to get vaccinated, and the fact that they're giving unnecessary medical procedures, to people that don't really need it, to me. And I get it. I get it where you're going with the node situation, but again, I'm not one side or the other side of this. I'm still indifferent, and
Who does a vaccine mandate harm?
I mean, it takes a lot of time out of your day to go get this fucking vaccine twice.
Who does it harm?
That's a very good question. I don't have a very good answer. I don't have a very good answer for that.
Who does it benefit?
Fat people and old people.
Really, everybody.
No,
it benefits everybody.
No, it doesn't. It keeps people who are highly susceptible from dying.
But it also keeps it prevents infection in a lot of people, and in the people who do get infected, it prevents hospitalization. So
look,
if you were to
hold up, hear me out. A lot of people are against it because they think like they're getting like microchipped, or they don't trust the technology. I'm not in that camp. I'm just thinking that for the most part, most people don't need it because they're healthy and the coronavirus isn't going to hurt them.
But that's wrong.
And people who have already had it don't need it either.
That's also wrong.
But it's not entirely wrong, and that's what I'm getting.
The first part is completely wrong. The second part is half wrong.
You're talking about spreading it.
I'm talking about if you are a healthy person, there's still the possibility of getting a strong case of it. Like it's completely random. Some people don't show symptoms.
Well, it's completely random, except it's very, very minute chance that it could harm you. And most of the people, the reason that they withheld the nursing home deaths was so that they could use that as a scare tactic that more people are dying. If they released the fact that these people are in their 80s and their chance of survival over the next 6 months, irregardless, was close to 0% because they were in nursing homes, and most people die within 6 months anyways after moving into a nursing home.
But hold on, you're changing the conversation, because what you said
is if
you're a healthy person, you don't need it, and that's wrong. It's if you're healthy, there's still the possibility that you could get very sick and end up in the hospital.
But that's even not how we make. That's not how we make laws. Somebody who has sight can cross the road and still get hit by a car, but people still cross roads. That's it's okay.
But
we got to change the topic, because you're asking me to defend. You're asking me to defend something that my mind's not made up on. And I'm
trying to do is get you to realize that you're wrong about two key factors that are causing you to be uncertain about it. And if you remove those factors, your certainty will go up considerably.
But I disagree with you on those factors. I disagree with you on the fact that it's dangerous to people in their 20s and 30s and teens and 6-year-olds who aren't getting it.
But it is.
And anybody? No, it's not. How many people do you know from
anecdotal evidence does not work here. You have to look at
but find the number of people that 1 years old to
no. People that doesn't work. You can't use that argument, because that you have to look at aggregate statistics here.
So let's look at the aggregate statistics, and then we find out that the majority of people that died in New York were senior citizens, and that information was withheld from us.
Yes, but if you have
anybody who died, whether they died from coronavirus, or they died from something else, if they had coronavirus, were marked as a coronavirus casualty. is
No,
skewing
no,
the
no.
numbers.
Look, again, you're not letting me make my point.
Because you're asking me to agree with you on something that my mind's not made up on.
Because you haven't let me make my point.
I haven't agreed to your point, but I'll hear you out again.
No, I haven't finished making my point because you keep interrupting me and changing the subject.
All right, go ahead.
That even if it's a relatively rare occurrence for someone who's healthy to have severe complications from COVID, the highly infectious nature of it means that if you have a lot of people that get it, even those small chances end up becoming large numbers of people that have it. It's if you have a 1 in 100 chance or a 1 in 1,000 chance, that's not very high. But if you infect 1 million people and there's that 1 in 1,000 chance, that's 1,000 people that are having a severe reaction. Hospitals have limited capacity. And so even though healthy people aren't going to likely suffer really bad outcomes from a COVID infection, that 1% or 0.1% that do, if you have enough people that are infected, then those people need to go to a hospital, and they take up space that hospitals can't use for other people that badly need it. And you can't look and say, well, most people are going to be fine, because the small people that aren't fine take away valuable resources for other people who don't have the option.
I feel you on that, and I recognize that. I don't, and this is kind of where we have a difference in opinion. I definitely see what you're saying. You're saying somebody who needs a heart transplant can't get their heart transplant and die because people didn't get vaccinated and the hospitals were overrun.
Yes, and
okay.
the more people you have vaccinated, like the less severe outcomes you have. So you take that 1 in 1,000 chance of an unvaccinated person and make it a 1 in 1 million chance that they're going to the hospital with a COVID infection. So you reduce the amount of severe outcomes, and that means that less people that get infected with COVID go to the hospital, which means that hospitals have more resources for other emergencies that happen at some incidence level.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing on that. What I'm disagreeing on is the portrayed severity of coronavirus and the push to get the vaccine. If this was polio, I might feel a bit differently.
Most cases of polio don't have negative outcomes. Most cases of polio, no, even before, like for you to be in an iron lung because of polio, it's not like everyone who got polio ended up in an iron lung. It wasn't like what was the really bad disease that was like in Africa like 3 or 4 years ago?
Ebola.
Yeah, Ebola. It's not like Ebola where like something like 60 to 80% of people that get Ebola die. Like polio was a very small portion of people that got polio that ended up being paralyzed or being in an iron lung.
All right. Well, look, I want to. Again, I'm more for the mandate than not. I'm just not fully sold on it. So, and I got the vaccine. I totally get it. My mind's just not 100% on it, and that's
right. And so, what I'm telling you is that one of the reasons that you gave is misinformed to the point of being wrong, and like part of with the girl that I'm seeing right now, I have this conversation all the time where I talk about things that I think might be wrong, and she can help me correct because she's got very different experiences than me. And so I'll go in saying like, I might be misinformed on this, help me out here. And you have to realize that when you don't know all the facts, you might be wrong, and be willing to accept that there's a different possibility here. And what you're saying about healthy people not needing the vaccine because the chances of them getting very sick misses a lot of other things.
I know of no one under 40 years old who was healthy who's been affected.
I know of multiple people. But again, you can't use anecdotal evidence because just because you don't know anybody doesn't mean that like the numbers out there speak for themselves, which is that hospitals are still struggling with this. It depends on your location. Like Areas that are highly vaccinated, much less of a problem. Areas that don't have much vaccination rates are struggling.
We gotta pivot on the topic because this isn't an episode about coronavirus. This is just on the vaccine mandate. And you were right that the police, even though they mandated this and they were protesting and predicting that so many police officers were just going to quit and the city was going to be anarchy and chaos, didn't happen. Only 34 of 40,000 actually quit. However, the fire department, the sanitation services are actually like 20% of people didn't show up to work. So that's
really,
yeah. I just heard it on the news on the ride home. I was texting you guys when I was driving, but I couldn't continue the conversation because I was driving. But yeah, they were like, "Oh, it's a great success. 92% of city workers got it." And then the host of the radio show was like, "Well, can you tell us a little more about the fire department?" They're like, "Well, only 4 to 5 people in the fire department, the sanitation service got the vaccine. But considering that 200,000 people got it that work for the city, it's an overwhelm. It's a big success." And I was like, "Well, but okay, how are we defining success here?"
It's interesting to me because I thought that this rule applied to all city workers. So like those 20% of firefighters that didn't get the vaccine, are they going to get fired?
Well, they haven't showed up to work. They've been calling in sick. And the fire department and sanitation services are the ones that are going to have the biggest issue. And we'll see how that plays out over the next week. I have an agent who's also a firefighter, and he said, "Look, for the foreseeable future, I can't work. I need to be there working overtime every single day because we're super short-staffed."
Right. So it's another case of your selfishness affects others negatively.
Exactly. So, all right, let's move on. I want to talk about Black Friday. I want to hear what your debate was. I have some history. On Black Friday. So, you tell me what your debate was. You tell me your stance.
I was talking about how much I like Thanksgiving because it's one of the few holidays that I think hasn't really been commercialized. Thanksgiving is a day where you get together with family and friends, you have a whole bunch of good food, and you just chill and not worry about things. Like,
completely agree with you.
You don't have to buy gifts for anybody. You don't have to, all you have to do is just show up and relax. There's
unless you're cooking. But
right, but that's
one out of it's like one out of the entire family, maybe a couple.
Well, no, it's you have to spend some money on the holiday, but it's not like it's commercialized where there's.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's shopping for Thanksgiving isn't a thing unless you're talking about food, but then it's just a large meal.
Every holiday and family gathering, that's the cost of overhead to.
Yeah, and so. The other side of this argument was that it is commercialized because Black Friday is the most commercialized, is the biggest commercial day of the year, and that happens the day after Thanksgiving. And I said, I don't see the two as related. I see Black Friday as its own thing. Thanksgiving stands on its own.
Well, look, let's back up. One, I agree. I'm on your side of the argument. Thanksgiving is not a commercialized holiday. It is probably the least of the commercialized holidays, unless you group it in there with
New Year's,
President's Day, New Year's. Yeah, but New Year's, you're really encouraged to go out and go to parties. And
New Year's, you're much more likely to go out to a bar to celebrate. But you can have New Year's parties at home that are going to look really similar to Thanksgiving with just more alcohol.
More alcohol, but also there's going to be party favors and stuff like that. You don't have that.
You're not really buying gifts for New Year's.
In some cultures they do, but back to Thanksgiving, it's just food, and that's any holiday or get together. There's food. That's a prerequisite. So I agree with you there. I will say though, on the commercialization of Thanksgiving, I don't know if it was intentional, but I somehow subscribed to emails and things from retailers, and there's a lot of commercialism behind Thanksgiving in the sense that they want you to decorate your house and buy different plates and set the table differently and buy this gadget or that gadget to help you cook your turkey. So there is that element of the commercialization, but I would say for the most part, it's one of the biggest and most celebrated holidays that is the least commercial.
Yeah, like there's still some commercialization, sure, but
Now,
like you compare it to like Christmas.
now, do I group Black Friday as a Thanksgiving related holiday or as a Christmas related holiday? And in my mind, I have a pretty thick kind of steel wall that just drives right between Thanksgiving and the holiday season. So I don't
To me,
even like
Thanksgiving is the start of the holiday season,
uh,
and Black Friday is the start of Christmas season.
yeah, exactly. It's a different holiday. That's a good way to look at it. So look, I did a little research on the history of Black Friday. I thought I'd share that with you
Yeah.
in our time remaining because it's pretty cool. So Black Friday and Black Saturday, that was there. It first appeared in 1951, 1952, in two places, Philadelphia and Rochester. It was a police term used to describe the crazy crowds and congestion and traffic from people shopping after Thanksgiving. So Friday and Saturday were called Black Saturday, Black Friday, because there were crazy crowds, like blackouts, crazy traffic, and the police traditionally the term black whatever was used to describe kind of calamities,
Yeah.
right? So the police were kind of nicknaming it that because it was really a calamity in Philadelphia and Rochester. However, first time it was used in publication was a trade publication called Factory Management and Maintenance, and I actually like this one. And this is in 1951. So this is basically a trade publication that if you like run a factory, you're maybe subscribing to. Workers were taking the day off on Friday after Thanksgiving so they could have a 4-day weekend. And basically their productions came to a halt because everybody was calling out.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting.
When did the term? Because like I've always understood Black Friday in like it's when businesses go into the black for the year.
Okay.
When did that come around?
I'll get there in just a second, but let me segue here. So in 1960, because it's not for another couple decades that they start referring to the profitability of the business during the holidays. So 1961, the city of Philadelphia, so the city and their merchants, like the big box stores in downtown Philadelphia, tried to rebrand it not as Black Friday and Black Saturday, but as Big Friday and Big Saturday.
Okay.
Didn't catch on. Although I like the effort. And then the term Black Friday first appeared in the New York Times, which is a slightly bigger publication than the Factory Management and Maintenance trade publication. First appeared in the New York Times in 1975. And some question over it because Black Friday was traditionally used for like really bad times, but by 1975 it was almost a celebrated holiday. So it wasn't until the 80s that it became known. The connotation behind Black Friday wasn't as a calamity, kind of negative background, but that businesses went from being in the red to being in the green. So basically, retailers operated at a loss for the majority of the year until they hit their holiday revenues, where people started spending big money in the stores. And if you think about it, that's when stocks became big, and fully understanding a company's financials from a stockholder's perspective was what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of well known and
more prevalent.
Yeah, more prevalent is probably the best way to describe that. So so in the 80s was when it got the connotation that we understand it as today, that businesses went from not being profitable to having a positive revenue, or profitable revenue. So interestingly, though, I started reading about, and this is a couple of articles, and then basically following the Wikipedia page. But Thanksgiving parades were sponsored by major retailers as basically an advertising promo for themselves. So a big one was obviously Macy's, and that marked the start of the big holiday advertising push. And it was somewhat of an unwritten rule that you wouldn't advertise holiday sales prior to Thanksgiving. So you wouldn't advertise Christmas sales, and you wouldn't overlap that with the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah, I wish that we could go back to that.
Well, I'm going to get into how it slipped into now. Well, we're advertising for Christmas as of basically
today,
before Halloween.
When my roommate was looking for like Halloween candy and a Halloween costume, he went to Target, and he's like, "There's already like 3 aisles in Target for Christmas shit."
Dude, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Home Depot had most of their Halloween shit sold out. Home Depot had a full set of Christmas trees up, and this is at least 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. So look, the parades marked the start of the big advertising push, because before Thanksgiving, they couldn't advertise for Christmas. And this goes back before we get into Black Friday. But in the 1930s, there was some controversy because these businesses wanted to advertise their holiday sales prior to the Christmas season, which is post Thanksgiving. So there's a little controversy. And then FDR actually set Thanksgiving as the fourth Thursday in November. And then subsequently Congress signed that into existence. But that meant that being the fourth Thursday in November, that some years there's an extra week in there, and retailers could advertise a little bit longer. Let's see. So back in the day, how did you get ads?
Newspaper, radio,
and then commercials weren't the way they are now until like the late 50s and 60s is when they really became prevalent in kind of the sense that they are now. But back in the day, there was no internet. You didn't have crazy Nerf gun commercials and Lego commercials and Barbie princess commercials, every single commercial in between your TV show like you do today. But we've had this rise of online advertising, and I learned that in 2009. So basically, the sales would start 7 a.m. on Friday after Thanksgiving. And then stores would open up a little bit earlier, 5 or 6 a.m. So people could rush in there early, trample each other. And then in 2009, and you get the sales in your newspaper on Thanksgiving to go out the next day. They tell you what time the store opened, right? Mm-hmm. In 2009, Kmart opened their doors at 7 p.m. Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, pre-Black Friday sales.
Exactly. And from there, it was really a rapid decline.
Yo, I'm willing to make a bet right now. Not a bet, a proposition. So I didn't know exactly what year this started, so thank you for telling me it was 2009. But like with all these stores having Thanksgiving Day sales, which I think is really terrible. Like that's a day that you should be able to just chill with your family. Don't have to go work a terrible retail job. But with the like great resignation that we're seeing right now, where a lot of people are just saying, you know what, I'm not working this low paid job. Like pay me better or treat me better, but I'm not sticking around for these current conditions. I'm willing to bet that a lot of retailers are not going to be doing Thanksgiving Day sales this year.
That's very interesting. So
because the workers are just going to be like, no, we're not doing it.
So Jen says Cyber Mondays. I'll get there in a second. I wanted to say hi to Ronald and Dante. I saw a couple of people join. I didn't get a chance to say hi. But yeah, so we've had this. They've been backing it up, and we're no longer looking at Thanksgiving as anything sacred anymore. All the stores are open Thanksgiving. They're all open Easter. They're for the most part, it's been the Christian holidays in the U.S. that businesses have been closed. But and any of the other big Jewish holidays or Muslim holidays, for the most part, the retail world didn't shutter for. But now they're not even shuttering for the big Christian holidays, which I for the most part I'm okay with. But I do like the idea. I remember being kids where things were closed and you were kind of forced to spend the time with your family.
Hmm.
And I, even if your living situation wasn't great, you had to make the best of it. But I do think you make a really good point, is that if you can't get somebody to work for whatever your local minimum wage is, why wouldn't that person rather just be, if somebody's going to make like $47 for a fucking work day, why not just stay at home, especially considering the cost of gas?
Well, and that's what you're seeing right now is that so many people are quitting these bad jobs, and that like these employers are realizing that what they used to be able to hire people for isn't cutting it anymore. And so wages are going up, and they're going to continue to go up while workers basically say, what you're offering me isn't worth it.
Well, also with the unemployment situation too.
That's becoming less and less of a factor as people's benefits either time out or the state and federal government roll back the generosity of the benefits.
I want to talk about Cyber Monday real quick and online advertising, but on that
go
note,
ahead.
because I feel like we could do a whole episode about it. But by thinking recently, I was walking down the street, seeing a lot of help wanted signs, and I was thinking that if you can basically live in poverty, if you can work really hard for a minimum wage job and basically live in poverty, not much better than that. Or you can not work at all and still live at the same standard of living in poverty, but with all the federal and state programs. Why would you have a job in these minimum wage? I was walking kind of down a crummy block, seeing help wanted signs, thinking like, I would never work here. And if I was working here, where could I afford living? And then I was thinking like, but if that was the type of place that I could afford living in, there's got to be a lot of people that are just on subsidies that are living there.
Well, a lot of them, even if they're not, if you're working some of these jobs for $8.50 or $9 an hour,
you may be working multiple jobs.
You might be working multiple jobs, but even if you're not getting any kind of unemployment because you're employed, a lot of those people are getting other forms of government assistance, either through like rent subsidies or like food stamps or WIC.
Sure, but my point is, which is good. They should be taking advantage of those things. I think those things are really good, especially if you're working hard. But my point was, why bust your ass when you could just live a much more peaceful life and it wouldn't be any worse off, really.
Right. And so the thing that we've seen in the last year is that people have realized, you know what, working 8 hours a day for $8.50 an hour isn't that much different than not working at all.
Yep.
And now I don't have to deal with a terrible work environment.
That's and that's kind of that's what I was thinking about. So look, I want to talk about so we had the advertised in the newspaper, the print ads coming through saying you can come in 5 a.m. You can come in the day before. And now you have people don't go to stores the way that they used to, even 5 or 6 years ago. You have all these people buying stuff online, and the online sales don't open at 7 p.m. or 5 a.m.
They're just whenever.
So we're kind of there's a bit of the idea of Black Friday starting at 6 a.m. is going to be kind of a notion that just kind of evaporates from people's minds.
Let me ask you this. For the gifts that you're going to be buying this year, or the things that you're going to be buying for yourself during the holiday season, what percentage of those things are you going to be buying in an actual store?
You bring up a really good point, because I've actually thought about myself. Usually I typically, when I'm trying to buy something for somebody, especially if trying to come up with a very thoughtful gift and I don't have anything in my mind, I'll browse online a little bit. But a lot of times, especially if I'm down to the wire, which, I was always, if I did any homework, it was always the night before it was due. And that was usually like the reports that a quarter of your grade depended on. But that's the same way I shop for Christmas presents, kind of last minute shopping. So in Manhattan, I knew where I would go. I'd go to places that had lots of stores. Now that I'm out in the suburbs, I actually kind of envision myself like going to the mall and trying to navigate through the mall. And I couldn't get a good vision of it because I hadn't spent that much time in shopping malls lately. But you bring up a good point. How much shopping am I going to physically do in the store. And
as opposed to ordering things online.
I would say a solid 80% of my shopping will be done online.
I was going to say that for me, it would probably be about the same, if not a little bit higher.
Which that makes you think, what is Black Friday if people aren't physically going to the stores? And are we only having those sales on the following Monday? And if you don't set these big releases for the sales, Cyber Monday, boom, everything's going to be 50% off. Or Black Friday, in-store only, everything's going to be 50% off. If you kind of dissolve that over the course of like, well, starting Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we're going to start having buy one, get one, or buy one, get one 50% off. And then on the Friday after, we're going to do this. It kind of dissolves. And that's what I'm thinking. Like, if you can't have exclusionary sales, right, where it's only a certain time and you're building up that scarcity, then without the scarcity element, what's pushing people to rush in? Obviously, people are buying stuff no matter what.
There's another aspect of scarcity that we're seeing this year, which is on the supply side. For a variety of reasons, inventory is low in all sorts of areas. So a lot of stores can't really offer too many sales because they don't have as much as they normally would to sell.
Very good point. Yeah. You just hit a hot point in my head, because I got some major beef with my local Home Depot store manager. And,
MJ says online is the way to go. Who wants to deal with the crowds? And I can just order. It'll be the same price or cheaper for me to stay at home the entire time. And by the way, it gets brought to my front door.
Yeah. Well, look, I was just going to say, I've been going to the same Home Depot for the last year, and I've noticed that like the stock is really missing there. A lot of the shelves are just fucking empty. And I wonder if it's just a lousy store manager, which I actually
probably isn't.
Think it may be, but yeah, there's a good chance it's supply chain issues.
No, the store manager has very little say as to what goes on their shelves.
Well, but maybe they're not doing a very good job keeping the inventory.
No, they don't do that either. Like for these giant stores, the inventory is not something that's directly controlled by them. That's handled at the corporate level. So the only thing that would really be directly controlled by the stores is like how accurate the staff is when they are scanning in freight to receive it, or scanning out freight when they sell it at the front. But
what if you do the self checkout?
Still,
I try to be as inaccurate as possible.
Well, sure, but like. The only things that the store controls.
If they're hiring me as a temporary sales clerk to check out myself, I just like to say they did a very poor interview, because I'm not very good at checking things out.
Yeah, but when it comes to these giant retail operations, like in terms of managing the inventory at the store level, the only controls that really exist at the store level is how accurate are the staff at scanning in the freight to the computer system, and how accurate is the point of sale software at recording inventory when it is sold.
Which is probably
the store manager isn't going to be able to like walk around the lumber section and say, we're short on 2x4s. I guess I need to order more. That's not a decision the store manager makes. That's something that like Home Depot corporate is going to see, and they're just be like, well, we don't have any 2x4s to send you.
We got about a minute, 30 seconds left. I want to share a quick story with you. I don't know if you recall this. The year that a couple of my friends went to Crossgates Mall to do some Christmas shopping, we stopped at a Hula Hands or one of these like Fridays that was type of places that was in the mall. And one of our friends decided he was going to treat us to drinks. And we were there for like 3 or 4 hours, got hammered. This guy disappeared. And my other friend got really kind of too drunk. And he had a family member that actually happened to stop by. I gave him a ride home. I was stuck at the restaurant and had to spend all of my money to bail us out, all of my shopping money to bail us out of this bar bill. Do you remember that story?
I remember that it became a tradition for you to get drunk at Hula Hands.
Well, nobody likes Christmas shopping. From Ronald, quick comment says, even the person in charge of a specific section doesn't know anything about that section. He's talking about Home Depot.
Oh yeah, he's right.
Yeah, that's true. Everything's online. All right, guys. We're hi, Cocoa Bar and Super Far. Super Far says be thankful, and that is the spirit of Thanksgiving.
Yep.
On that note, guys, thank you for having us on the display of your cellular phone. This is it. This is the end. Thank you, Rash, Galeb, and happy birthday. That's why we missed last Thursday. We were celebrating Rash's birthday. Thank you for feeding us the comments. Thank you, James, for joining. We'll see you guys next time.
Cheers, guys.
Adios.
All right, you have reached the other end. This end is the end. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening this far, at least. I'll see you guys next time, and please don't forget, like, subscribe, share the video, comment. Anything you do, any interaction, as I always say, helps us, and I truly appreciate that. See you guys next time. Thank you.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.